Hello, my name is Hadley, and I am creating an interactive documentary focusing on the lives of normal people that are dealing with this very complex but invisible disease. Type 1 diabetes is a disease that completely controls one's life but is invisible to everyone else. This interactive documentary will provide a safe space for type 1 diabetics to share their stories of living with a complicated disease to college students. The documentary will educate college students on what to do in an emergency situation, while also showing them how to support and be more understanding of the people they know living with type 1 diabetes. I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes when I was 18 months old. I grew up embarrassed and ashamed of a disease I had no control over. I chose to ignore a medical condition that I was living with that required 24/7 attention. The repercussions of all of this led to numerous hospital trips, seizures, constant low and high blood sugar, and never feeling well. Type 1 diabetes is a disease that has a huge stigma attached to it. A common misconception is that individual behavior and poor choices result in developing type 1 diabetes. This belief leads people to think that those who have diabetes are entirely responsible for their condition, which is entirely untrue. This documentary is to help lessen the stigma. Bringing awareness to this invisible disease eases the challenges of living with type 1 diabetes. Educating the college community about type 1 diabetes allows them to help in both emergency situations as well as general support for their friends and family with diabetes, overall contributing to a healthier and safer life for people with type 1 diabetes. The purpose of using an interactive documentary is to elevate a typical documentary by ensuring that the audience is engaged throughout, by making the user the narrator with buttons to control the narrative instead of just watching it. The purpose of this documentary is to educate college students who don't have diabetes what to do in an emergency situation. An emergency situation can happen at any moment with a diabetic. Time is of the essence in diabetic emergencies. In most cases, if a diabetic passes out or is unconscious, a simple shot of glucagon or insulin will help bring them back. The more time passes without helping a diabetic, the more at risk the diabetic will become for more serious, life-threatening complications. Most people are unaware of how serious type 1 diabetes is because of the assumption that the cause for this disease is eating too much sugar. Eating too much sugar is completely unrelated to type 1. Sugar is actually what can save a diabetic's life. Type 1 takes a lot of mental and physical effort to stay healthy and alive. By hearing someone else's story, it allows a diabetic to relate to someone else in a way that they may have not been able to before. This can positively impact a diabetic's mental health, which can also positively impact the way they are taking care of themselves. In type 1 diabetes, the pancreas doesn't make any insulin. Type 1 diabetics are insulin dependent and go through intensive insulin therapy for their entire life. Insulin therapy replaces the insulin the body would normally make. Type 1 diabetes is thought to be caused by an autoimmune reaction where the body attacks itself. Diet and lifestyle habits do not cause type 1 diabetes. Type 1 isn't caused by anything that someone did or didn't do, and there's nothing you can do to prevent it. In type 2 diabetes, the pancreas doesn't make enough insulin, or the insulin it is making doesn't always work as it should. In type 2 diabetes, the body produces insulin, but the cells do not respond to insulin in the way they are supposed to, known as insulin resistance. Type 2 diabetes is more likely to be diagnosed in people who are over the age of 40, overweight, and have a family history of diabetes. The burden of care with managing type 1 diabetes, including the necessary and drastic lifestyle changes, often leads to the perception of self as different. Studies show that anxiety, depressive, and eating disorders occur at a higher rate in type 1 diabetics compared to non-diabetics. There is a direct correlation between depressive symptoms and poor glycemic control. Studies have shown that diabetics diagnosed with a mental health disorder experience a significant increase in hospitalization for complications of diabetes. The constant attention and control of intake of carbohydrates involved in diabetic self-management contributes to distorted thinking patterns surrounding food and weight loss, leading to diabetics having twice the risk for development of an eating disorder. Type 1 diabetes is a widely misunderstood disease that affects more than 1.45 million Americans. These simple misconceptions of type 1 diabetes lead to adverse mental health outcomes and life-threatening situations. Diabetes stigma is one of the main reasons why so many type 1s struggle with their mental health, which will ultimately affect their self-care. Feeling stigmatized affects diabetes management directly because diabetics may be less likely to use or adopt necessary therapies that may be apparent in public. such as taking insulin injections or using an insulin pump. In many cases, people with diabetes avoid full disclosure about their disease to both peers and healthcare professionals because they fear judgment or blame. It is a huge possibility that someone you know may have type 1 diabetes without you being aware. Type 1 diabetes education and awareness is extremely important in the case of an emergency. A type 1 diabetic should always carry a glucagon injection, but if they don't, awareness within their community could save their life. A glucagon injection is an emergency medicine used to treat severe hypoglycemia in diabetics treated with insulin who have passed out or cannot take some form of sugar by mouth. Without prompt treatment, severe hypoglycemia may lead to a coma or even death. If the community was more aware and educated on type 1, the stigma would lessen, resulting in improved healthcare overall, and it is possible you could be saving someone's life. Alright, and now this is my prototype using the application Clint on my laptop. So this is obviously about music because I haven't filmed the videos yet that I'll be using for the documentary, but this is just an example to show you how it can be interactive. So this is the home page, and you can see that when you hover over these links, the background changes. So I plan on having the names of the people I'm interviewing over on this side, and when you hover over their names, I'll have a picture of them pop up. So if we go ahead and click on the first one, you can see that it is just him talking and it's just a video. And you can click this to go forward or this to go backward. And then over here, you can see the title of the video. So I would have their name up there, and you can click on this to learn more. So I would have information about what they're talking about and just go more into detail. And you can just see that that works, and that changes up there. And then you can also click this button where you can just click where you want to go and see which video you want to see. And then you can click this to go home and start all over. And that is it. Thank you.